Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good morning, everybody. I'm really very delighted to have all these audience and guests, in fact, from all over the world. And today is really the importance of this workshop, in addition to being admitted in one of the university in USA. It is really very knowledgeable, and especially we have really very talented and experienced guests who will really inform you a lot. And we will have really some of the workshop, which I will lay some of the agenda on this case. But before I talk about the agenda, I'll just go briefly with some of the bio of our guests. And we have Dr. Nzih Al-Uthmani, and he is an assistant professor from College of Engineering in King Abdulaziz University. He graduated from University of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. And the second, or rather the other also guest that we have Professor Bamila, and she's the president of the University of St. Jovis, in fact. And she got her, again, PhD from University of Pennsylvania, and she has really a lot of experiences in really or the other diversities and developing a lot of projects and related projects to women really development, in fact. Especially that their school, then their undergraduate, they're only just for female, and the graduate school is for both male and female. She initiated in her experiences really, or rather launched a program in the School of Pharmacy, in fact, which is a doctorate program. Also, she received a number of honors, including the Hartford 50 Most Influential People by Hartford Magazine, which means that we're going to have really a hard time really going beyond what she's going to really tell us, in fact. So that means she's really very, very, very influential. The third guest, in fact, we have Dr. Craig, and he is the Vice President for Academic Affairs and the Provost at the same time. He graduated from the University of Boston, which is a very well-known university. He has been really an editorial for several journals, and he had a lot of honors, in fact, and this is really very delighted to have him here today. Lastly, we have Dr. Suhail, and he is the Assistant Vice President for Research for a sister health system and as an international branch, in fact. Prior to that, he served in several positions, and this has really made him very well experienced, in fact. He used to be in University of South Florida, and then he went to also the University of Boston, he used to be. Then he worked a little bit in University of Pittsburgh as a director for a chief in selection for cellular transportation and health or medical informative. Then he was also in University of Hannon University. And lastly, he was really in Drexel University, also for College of Medicine. And then he started, in fact, earlier age, he used to be in Tennessee State University. Going beyond, or rather far away from the biography, we have some agenda which basically will make our guests really alternate and really entertaining you today in this workshop. So we'll start with Professor Pam, and then we'll go for Dr. Craig, and then we'll have a small workshop where they really do kind of an experimentation of some files to be really admitted and what the process should be, and you guys should really understand what are the steps and the knowledgeable really idea they will develop, in fact. Then we'll go to Dr. Nzih for a while, and then we'll go for Dr. Suhail, and then Dr. Pam will conclude, and then we'll have an open discussion or other forum for a Q&A and or whatever comments that we will get from the audience. I'll leave the floor for Dr. Pam, and you're welcome.
Thank you so much. Sabak el-Khair. I'm so delighted to be here. This is my very first time visiting your country, and delighted that so many students have attended this workshop. It's going to be rather informal, and we'll have questions at the end. And I will be at the SACM booth. My university doesn't have a booth here this year. Let's start by talking about just some basics about studying at the undergraduate level in the United States. You know, there's so many options. When you come in the undergraduate experience, you learn skills, you learn content, but you're also learning about the culture of the U.S. There's a chance to expand your understanding of what your world is about, and at the undergraduate level, we often consider it's the time to learn about yourself, to learn about your peers, and to, especially if you come at a young age, it's also your time to grow up. There's so many choices in the U.S., about more than 2,700 four-year universities and colleges that give the undergraduate baccalaureate degree. Some are public, which means that they're supported by the state, not the whole country, just the state in which they're located. Some are private or independent, which means that they're supported totally through tuition and fundraising. About 4% of all the students in the United States come from countries in the Middle East. You know, I'm not going to read exactly what's on the slide, but you can see that there are millions of students in the United States, and they are very different in age, in gender, in nationality, in ethnicity. The universities are different too, and it's often a very difficult choice to decide which place you should attend because they are different in terms of the size, in terms of the scope, the prestige, and I know a lot of people know about prestige, and also location, and so many people from other countries don't know about the locations. You know, small institutions can be as small as under 1,000 students or as large as 50, 60, or 70,000. There are actually many, many more small universities than large. The scope of the universities, research intensive, are the ones that typically will have the doctoral programs, the PhD programs. And the faculty in those universities are going to be excellent professors, but they spend a lot more time with the graduate students than with the undergraduate students. Comprehensive universities will have a mixture of both undergraduate and graduate. My institution, University of St. Joseph, is such an institution, so that we have a doctor of pharmacy, but we also have many undergraduate degrees and many master's degrees. Our other panelists have medical schools, engineering schools, and other professions that you may be interested in. But teaching is important. Being able to connect with the faculty, primarily liberal arts colleges will not have many graduate programs. You know, there's a saying in real estate, location, location, location is the most important thing. It's not really the most important thing for education, but you might want to think about where you'll be comfortable. Some people love big cities, very intense with a lot of population, millions of people. Some people prefer more neighborhood, suburban, and actually there are actually universities located out in the middle of farmlands with horses and animals. Near the desert, if you like more desert, you can find universities that are in the desert. You could find universities near the ocean, lakes, rivers. So I just point that out, that as you look at the websites of different universities, you might then also explore a little bit about where they're located. For most undergraduate institutions, there are a number of things that are required. Number one, you have to send in an application form. They don't know that you're interested if you don't do that. And so many universities have the application form right on the website. Once you get that started, they'll start sending you emails, and they will encourage you. Some application forms, by the way, may have a personal essay. You should talk to a professor or an advisor, maybe even at the embassy, at the U.S. Embassy, about your personal essay. Because what people are looking for is to know a little bit about you, not your diary, but more what are your interests, what are your experiences, and what do you hope to get out of your university experience. There are minimum scores. Many institutions require you to take the TOEFL or some other English language test because all of the education is going to be in English. And there's a lot of reading and a lot of conversation that's really important. I was actually talking to a young friend of mine, a student from China, and he was doing well in his classes, but he had a little difficulty making friends because his conversational English wasn't quite where it could be. And so the way he put it to me, he said he was having problems with chatting. So, your high school scores, your GPA is important, and that will make the difference many times between whether you get accepted or not, whether it's you or someone else from your class who gets accepted. The SAT, the entrance exam, is often required, but more and more institutions are waiving it or they don't have a minimum score. So that you need to talk to the admissions counselor at that university because the requirements will vary. The organization of the academic year in most institutions is 2 terms, about 15 weeks each term, which means there's about, about 3 weeks off in the 3 months off in the summer, or 2.5 months off in the summer. Most undergraduates take classroom hours, 3 hours a week in the classroom, and that's interestingly a 50-minute hour, sort of like psychiatrists. Students typically take 5 or 6 courses each term, but it might be advisable in the beginning to only take 4 to just be really strong in your English skills. 4 years is the goal to complete an undergraduate degree in 4 years, but many people take a little bit longer depending on the major. English language classes don't count towards that degree, so that if you do need to take English as a second language, ESL, program courses coming in, you may need 6 months, a year, or a year and a half before you actually start taking 4-credit courses. You know, there's so many cultural differences, but in so many ways people are the same everywhere. I have found the Saudi people so very warm and friendly, and the food delicious, but you may find very different things about the food in the United States and many other cultural differences that we'll talk about a little bit more. But really, I think the key issue is that the responsibility to succeed or fail is up to you. Professors will help you. There may be tutors available, but it's ultimately up to each student to take advantage of whatever supports are there. And to make friends, it will often mean reaching out. Americans can be shy and not comfortable always going up to international students. And so it's up to the students sometimes to make a little extra effort. Specific learning issues, aside from language, I'm not really familiar with the culture in Saudi schools, but in US schools, people do want students to participate, to come to class prepared and ready to participate in a discussion. The one key thing that I know a lot of international students, and actually some American students as well, have difficulty understanding the difference between sharing and cheating. And this is a big issue for professors. People will get failed and get put out of their class and maybe even out of school for cheating. And so to learn what does it mean, when are you allowed to share and work with other people, and when do you need to work on your own and it needs to be just from your head, you need to understand that. When is something in writing just your own thoughts, and when is it something that you've copied or attributed to someone else. The other specific problems could really, be just feeling comfortable in a new environment. So I had to put a big plug at the end. Two of my students who graduated recently from the University of St. Joseph.
Thank you, Dr. Pam, and I guess next is going to be Dr. George. Go ahead.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. It's actually my fourth trip to the kingdom, but it's the first time I've experienced rain, and that was quite refreshing in the desert yesterday. And in fact, there were actually hail, what we call hail, little ice balls coming down at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So that was a new experience. It's a pleasure to talk to you primarily about graduate studies in the United States, and I'll just give a very quick overview of some of the main issues, and then we can get, as Pam mentioned, into a discussion. As Pam mentioned, undergraduate studies, primarily the goal is to introduce you to the knowledge of a particular discipline, to prepare you in a general way, if you're majoring in biology or chemistry or English or engineering, for all of the topics within that particular field. The usual mode of delivery, at least in the initial years of undergraduate education, is the lecture. We're all familiar with the lecture, but as you go through advanced undergraduate and undergraduate school, that does change. There is a great emphasis on undergraduate education in the United States on group learning, group projects, and as Dr. Reed mentioned, learning the difference between what your individual contribution is to the group and what you're allowed to share and not share is a skill that you need to learn early in your experience in school. Graduate study, on the other hand, really focuses in on a specialty, and the expectation is that you become gradually an expert in an ever-narrowing field of knowledge. The primary mode of instruction is the seminar, where you might have 3 students or 15 students perhaps as a maximum, and each class is involving a presentation not just from the professor, but from one or more students. So taking individual responsibility for your learning is a hallmark of graduate education. It begins in undergraduate, but really on the graduate level, the assumption is that you are self-directed and self-motivated, and you are the one that's driving how you learn. And the ultimate goal, particularly in research-oriented graduate programs, is the creation of new knowledge, to add, not just to be able to summarize what has been done, but to create and add something new to the discussion, to the conversation in your particular field. And that requires, obviously, specialization and self-direction. Also within graduate programs, we often distinguish between practice degrees or professional degrees and research degrees. So typical practice degrees would be an MBA, Master of Business Administration, Master of Arts in Teaching, PharmD, Doctor of Pharmacy, obviously medical doctor. In the research area, they tend to be either master's or doctoral degrees, Master of Arts, Master of Science, EDD, which is a Doctor of Education, or PhD, often considered the highest degree in academe, Doctor of Philosophy in a particular field, such as biology or chemistry or engineering. In a master's degree, typically there are 30 semester hours. Dr. Reed talked about semesters and quarters, but typically 2 years of coursework, followed by a laboratory or a field experience, depending on whether it is a practice-oriented degree or a research-oriented degree, and then ending with a thesis, a written document, which is your contribution to your field, or a comprehensive examination. And when you choose master's programs, you should be very careful about the expectations of your employer or your university when you return to the kingdom, because some programs are not research-oriented. They are designed really for people to get advanced knowledge in a field, but not to do an individual research project, whereas others are research-oriented and they require a thesis, so you should be careful. In the doctoral degrees, the PhD is another 30 semester hours, another couple of years of coursework beyond the master's, taking a total of 5 years, depending on how long it takes you to do your dissertation. That usually involves intensive laboratory or field work, a qualifying examination, and finally a dissertation and defense of your dissertation. So as you get further along in your doctoral study, you are assigned an advisor and a committee that reviews your work, and increasingly your work becomes tied to the interests and sometimes the funding of your advisor. Entrance into graduate study, there are some basic standardized examinations, which I'm sure you've heard of. The most famous one for master's and PhD programs is the GRE, or the Graduate Record Examination. That is designed to test verbal, quantitative, and analytical abilities. Really, all of these examinations are very similar in that respect. They often give you a case to read and then a series of questions about that case to see how well you have understood the point and how well you are able to deduce the main elements or points of the reading. It's very language intensive. These examinations are very language intensive. Typically on the GRE, the score ranges between 130 and 170 when you get your score. The average in the United States for both the verbal and the quantitative is around 150 on that scale. And in the analytical writing, it's about 3.7 on a 6-point scale. And you can pretty much gauge, depending on how you do on the GRE, as to what level or type of institution that you might be accepted at. The research-intensive, large universities that are highly ranked are looking for people really with 160 to 170 scores. The middle level ones, which is the most common, between 150 and 160, and then below 150 you might have some difficulty finding a program, but there are many programs that will talk to you even if these scores are not in these ranges, so certainly don't give up hope. In graduate school, there are many challenges that you do face. I think one of the major ones is the level of English and mathematical skills that are expected. You think that, well, you're in graduate school and you don't need to worry about those things anymore. You've been accepted. But when you're writing a dissertation, it is in English. It does involve all of the issues of grammar and punctuation and citation. There isn't a lot of time spent in graduate school on these topics, so you need to be well prepared as you go forward. Experience in the field that you're seeking in graduate school is important. If you're in the health professions, for example, if you have experience in that as a practitioner or as a laboratory researcher, that is obviously very helpful as well. In graduate school, the courses are fewer than in undergraduate education, and so you need to do well really from the start. And if you are falling behind, dropping below the minimum grade point averages, you have less time and less opportunity to fix that as you go through the program. As Dr. Reed mentioned, attendance and participation is extremely important, particularly on the graduate level. You often have weekly presentations where you are expected to give the results of what you're working on, what you're reading, what you are experiencing in the laboratory. So learning to digest and analyze and present material to an audience is very important. Other things, of course, having to do with families, balancing the demands of families, bringing a spouse with you, finding an educational institution that might have opportunities for your spouse as well. For all graduate students, whether they're international or domestic in the United States, isolation is a real problem. The further you go in your study, the more you think, perhaps I'm the only person in the world who is worrying about this particular problem, and there aren't very many people to share that with. So learning to work with your colleagues, students and faculty, and talking is very important. Some institutions, particularly the more research-intensive ones, are often very competitive, and sharing information is sometimes not as open, because people are worried that you're going to take their idea or they're going to go in a direction that they didn't think of, and so it's a constant issue in graduate school. Actually, these are older slides. I had a revised version that didn't get taken in, so I'll just skip some of these things.
I think time is almost over. Time is almost over.
Time is over,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I'll save the rest for the discussion period, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Reid, and thank you, Professor Humphrey. And it should be obvious that what we have talked about so far, basically it's the undergraduate schooling in the USA, and then the graduate school. And in the coming 2 minutes, basically what will happen, they will act, or rather our guests will act as an admission committee, Dr. Suhail and Dr. Reid and Dr. also Humphrey, and Dr. Nzih will really assist him in that. So just basically, what are the points, or rather the issues that as a committee for admission you should really consider, so that all of our audience really could participate in that if they are later on asked regarding whatever you raise. The floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum. If you assume the role now, let's role playing that you're now in the graduate committee, admission committee sitting, and you have 1,000 file of applications in front of you from all over the world. How do you start? Could I have just Dr. Suhail begin in 1 or 2 minutes? What do you? This is a huge pile of files. Where do you start?
So, assalamu alaikum. So, when we sit down in a graduate admission and undergraduate admission program, one of the things that we are looking for, I am looking for in that particular candidate, because bear in mind that by the time the candidate has applied to you, and by the time your file comes to the admission committee, it has gone through an administrative review process. And that administrative review process has actually already triaged all those individuals who have either incomplete file or those who have not met the basic criteria for admission into your program. So you're now looking at a much smaller group of individuals, and you can therefore focus on these individuals and decide whether these are the right candidates for you or not. One of the things that when the chair of the committee starts, they start with an understanding that we are talking about humans, we are talking about careers, we are talking about the professions of individuals, and we have to take this process seriously. So every member of the committee is extremely serious. This is not a joke. It's a very, very serious process, because the decision is made about the future of the candidate. So what are we looking for? The best fit for this institution. That is the most important thing. When you come here, you have provided us a window of opportunity to look into your life, your past life, who you are and what you want to do. Is that, can this institution offer value to you? Are our studies, our curriculum, our degrees compatible with what your future goals are? And so this is one of the most important things we look at. The second thing that I personally look at and I pay particular attention to is your personal statement. Because actually that's a reflection of who you are. Because you are, it's just assumed that you are the one who are writing this. At an every institution that I have been, from University of Pittsburgh to Drexel to University of South Florida, I have actually asked my admission coordinators to actually run that particular personal statement in a software to see how much of your statements or part of your statement was plagiarized. Because remember, a lot of personal statements exist out there, and some of them are extremely convincing statements. But we are not looking for you to actually copy and paste from. We are actually looking for you to reflect who you are and what you intend to do. And sometimes people misunderstand the word personal statement. For example, before coming over here, I actually looked at a personal statement of a student who wants to go into a doctoral program in medical microbiology. And you have limited real estate when you write your personal statement. Most of the time it's 500 words. And this particular individual wrote about his 3 wives and 7 kids and took up half of the 500 words. So a personal statement doesn't really mean that you talk about your personal life. It actually, as Professor Reed said, it is an opportunity for you in the limited real estate that you have to actually present what you have done and what you intend to do, and how are you going to bridge it, and how this institution that you have applied to is actually going to help you bridge that particular gap. And I am actually very much committed to looking at a personal statement, because I realize the rest of it you have already taken care of and the admissions process has taken care of.
Great. Dr. Pamela?
I have to agree. I think that many students don't really look at the institutions. They try and say one application goes to everyone. At the undergraduate level, people will think, what does education mean to you? What is the major? Or even if you don't know the major exactly, what are you trying to accomplish with your life? At the professional level, people would like to hear about the experiences. Have you done anything? Have you already talked to professionals? Do you have some idea of what areas you'd like to study, what your area of focus? In PhD programs, a lot of people don't realize that the whole department sits around and looks at your application to discuss whether or not you fit with any of the faculty in that department. So if you're interested in a PhD program and you haven't studied who the faculty are in that department, you will be missing an opportunity to connect through your statement with the faculty member you might like to work with.
Dr. Humphrey?
I would agree completely. Also, your undergraduate record is important. I think one of the best predictors of success in graduate school is success on the undergraduate level. And many programs are looking for very specific courses that are related to the graduate program that you're going into, pharmacology or chemistry. But I would agree to investigate the website of the universities that you're interested. They all have faculty pages. You can look and see what the professors are doing, and if there's something of interest to you, make that known in your application. That will certainly help.
One of the common questions that we always face with students who are seeking admissions is, okay, we had our undergraduate course for 5 years. Our first 1 or 2 years were sort of like, we were not doing well, and that was the foundation of our GPA, which is low. But then the last 3 years, our performance improved and it became higher and higher. Does this pattern affect does it help? How do students with academic problems could compensate for their problems in their application?
So I think, the second important thing we look for is letter of reference. Okay, so after the personal statement, then comes the letter of reference. And the letter of reference is where this particular professor can actually help understand or help the admissions committee understand what was the evolution and transition of this particular student over the course of their undergraduate years. Because we have had students, and they have done remarkably well, and from Saudi Arabia, who did not do well in their first or second years, for whatever reasons. And then all of a sudden, they self-corrected their learning process, and started to perform much better. And we have received letters of references from the professors from that particular school. I can recall one from very good student from King Abdulaziz University, who self-corrected herself in the second year of her undergraduate program and is doing great in the PhD program at Baylor. Outstanding. And we actually facilitated her to go into Baylor School of Medicine to do her PhD in microbiology. So I think make sure that you have a letter of reference, and if you do not have a letter of reference referencing this, make this a small part of your personal statement. Because let me tell you, there are humans, they understand. All of us make mistakes. The most important thing is, have we realized that we made a mistake and have we self-corrected ourselves?
Yes, Dr. Reed.
Well, one of the advantages, you know, the letter of recommendation is excellent. One of the advantages of our modern technology is the opportunity to speak with the admissions counselors, to speak with faculty, in fact. And so to communicate directly, sometimes if you see a faculty member or a person that you're, especially in the doctoral programs that you may be interested in working with, everyone is open to a little flattery to say, you know, Dr. So-and-so, I have read your paper. I'm very interested in coming to work with you. Letters of recommendation should also be from people that you've worked with and know you well. But it's important, if you're applying for medicine, to have recommendations from people who know your science background.
Mm-hmm.
If you're applying for social science or nursing, to have people who can recommend you with the attributes that you need. Just saying that you're a lovely person is not enough.
Dr. George?
Yes, on this specific point of having perhaps a shaky beginning, schools do look at that, and they do understand that people need sometimes a transition. You might also look at universities that have what are called bridge programs. My university has one. And this would be a program for perhaps 1 semester or 1 year that you take a combination of undergraduate and graduate courses, perhaps with an English language course, and that can demonstrate, so you get a conditional acceptance into a master's or PhD pending completion of this bridge. So look for those opportunities as well.
Okay, one last question. Some students in Saudi Arabia go through diploma, a 2-year diploma. Could they get a transition, an application as a transition student where some of the courses they took in their 2 years counted towards their bachelor degree from a U.S. school?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes, they definitely would. There are there are certain agencies that will help us evaluate those courses and transcripts to make that transition so that people can have some previous credit.
Professor, you have anything?
Yes, and it does. And in fact, it all depends on the level of courses that you are taking and from which institution you are taking. Is that institution actually recognized by regional accrediting agencies or not? So it all depends on that. And then some schools may actually give you what is called credit, but that credit may not be of the same value that your diploma was. So let us say your diploma was for, I'm just making it up, 16 credit. The school that you're applying to may have actually evaluated your transcript. They will evaluate it at a great depth. And depending that you do come from an accredited program, they may actually give you 12 credits 12 of those credits would be accepted. So keep that in mind, but yes, they are transferable. One of the things I wanted to say, which is very important, is that Dr. Humphrey mentioned medical schools. At the present time, non-US citizens or those who are not residents of the United States cannot apply to medical schools in the United States. Okay, so this is restricted only to US citizens for the MD program. However, given the fact that we have now 60,000 plus undergraduates coming in the King Abdullah Scholarship Program in the United States, many of the students have actually expressed interest in and have done well on their own in MCATs, fully recognizing that they cannot get into medical schools in the United States. So a petition has been filed to actually give medical schools some leeway of admitting top-notch international students who are not US citizens to come into the MD program. This petition has been filed by 5 university medical schools in the United States to see if AAMC, which is the organization which oversees the medical schools, would allow us to do that. We are very hopeful that this may happen, but at the present time, at least for 2014, because now we are preparing ourselves for 2014 admission, it's not going to be there. Most likely by 2015, hopefully there will be some option for the students to come in.
Good. Dr. Humphrey, can you give us just one example of an international application that you still remember for one reason or another?
Well, there have been so many. We have actually 300 Saudi students at our university, but
Okay.
Probably a personal interview has been very important to me. The students that I have met and can relate to, we often Skype with students if we can't visit here or interview them during the conference or some other visit. That's important. Knowing the universities, many American universities have relationships or service contracts with Saudi universities, and knowing where the student is coming from is also important. Being able to call the dean or a faculty member in that area. I can't think of a specific student, but those are the kind of applications that stand out.
Dr. Reed, you clicked with the question, I noticed.
Well, I just, from my experience previously as a professor at the University of Michigan, I think the first thing often that separates people is the grades that they have. So that if there were really 1,000 applicants out there, especially for the more prestigious schools, they'll start with the top grades.
Great, okay.
Unfortunately.
Well, thank you all, and I hope the audience are really aware of some of the very important points that have been mentioned so far. Letter of reference, and also I really emphasize what have been said regarding the being admitted in a PhD program. You become really you belong to a family of a faculty, and belonging to that family is not going to be that easy to be admitted, in fact. So you have to be really to deserve this acceptance to be one of that family. It's not that easy issue that you think, well, it's just a matter of admission. It's not a matter of admission. It's a matter of lifelong commitment, in fact. You become a graduate, you become really a member of that university forever, in fact. I will leave the floor for Dr. Nzih again. He will just work on a case where we talk about an admission in the USA for both master degree and PhD, and then also the undergraduate. Go ahead, Dr. Nzih.
طيب السلام عليكم جميعا. أخوكم نزيه العثماني. في يوم من الأيام كنت جالس مكانكم قبل حوالي 5-6 سنين بس. والآن إن شاء الله مستقبلا بعد 10-15 سنة أنتوا تجوا وتجلسوا في المكان حقنا تعلموا الأجيال القادمة هذا الموضوع. حتكلم عن التخطيط الاستراتيجي للابتعاث، كيف تتواصل مع الجامعات، إيش إجراءات القبول اللي بشكل عام تكون في الجامعات الأمريكية. المصدر حيكون كتيب إرشادات للحصول على قبول وطبيعة الدراسات العليا في الولايات المتحدة. هذا كتيب كتبناه مجموعة من الطلاب، نزيه العثماني، غادة الغنيم، عثمان الذوادي، مشعل فرج، دكتور طلال سمرقندي. نشرته الملحقية، موجود على المدونة حقتي، دور على الجوجل، مكتوب فيه معظم التفاصيل اللي حتكلم فيها الآن وزيادة. نزلوا اونلاين. لو تروح البوث تبع ساكم، بوث رقم 201 اعتقد، الملحقية الثقافية في واشنطن، بنعطيك الكتيب ده على CD تقدر تشوفه وتشوف الإجراءات بنفسك. أهم حاجة إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى. فما دام بتسلك الآن طريق لطلب العلم، فاخلص النية لله عز وجل إن يكون هدفك هو عمارة الأرض، إنك تستخدم العلم هذا، ترجع البلد دي، ترجع لبلدك ولوطنك، تستخدم العلم والخبرة اللي حتستفيدها في خدمة الناس وتقديم شيء مفيد للمجتمع اللي أنت فيه وللعالم كله. أنت عالم الآن تقدم للناس كلها، ما أنت يعني لا تحصر نفسك في بيئتك فقط، لا، خليك شخص منطلق للعالم كله. ونسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يجعلنا ممن يسلك طريقا يبتغي فيه العلم وتصلي عليه الملائكة وتستغفر له ليلا ونهارا. طيب النجاح، ما هو النجاح؟ كل واحد فينا يسعى للنجاح. ليش رايح بعثة؟ أبغى أنجح في حياتي. فالنجاح له تعريفات مختلفة. عجل شدني هذا التعريف، إنه هو التحقيق المتكرر، ليش؟ المتكرر بتكرار لأهداف تم تحديدها مسبقا، أهداف تم تحديدها مسبقا وتستحق بذل الجهد من أجلها. الأهداف دي، التعريف ده يركز على إنه أنا عندي أهداف أنا محددها. فالنجاح في الحياة بتوفيق الله عز وجل هو التحقيق المتواصل لأهداف. أحدد هدف أشتغل عشانه وأحققه، أروح الهدف اللي بعده، أشتغل عشانه وأحققه، أروح الهدف للي بعده. فليش رايح للابتعاث؟ إيش تبغى؟ لا تكون من الناس أوكي كل الشباب رايحين ابتعاث يلا نطلع ابتعاث. إيش تبغى تعمل؟ إيش تبغى تدرس؟ كنا في لجنة الدعم والمساندة للملحقية الثقافية في واشنطن، كثير تجيك أسئلة وتساؤلات. أبو داني يا دكتور نزيه أنا ولدي جاي، لو تشوف لي قبول هناك في أمريكا. طب قبول في إيش؟ والله أي حاجة، اللي أنت تشوفه كويس خذه، أنا أثق في يا ابني أنا ما ينفع. طب ولدك إيش يبغى؟ إيش يحتاج؟ ضروري يكون عندك هدف. مو تقول خلاص أروح أمريكا وربنا يسهلها. حر، أنت تبغى تروح هناك وربنا يسهلها، إن شاء الله ربنا يسهلها، بس يعني اللي عندهم أهداف هم اللي ينجحوا. فنظرتك للابتعاث إذا كان شهادة تمام حينتج عنه سلوك. إذا نظرتك للابتعاث إنه الشهادة دي وسيلة أحقق بيها رؤية مستقبلية لما أريد أن أطمح إليه، سلوكك حيكون مختلف. إذا رؤيتك للابتعاث والله إجازة فلة خلونا نطلع، كل الشباب طالعين نطلع، شباب طالعين رحلة، هذا الشيء حينعكس على سلوكك. فحدد أنت إيش تبغى، مين تبغى تكون. سوت جامعة ييل عام 1953 سألوا 100 طالب إيش هدفك في الحياة؟ إيش تبغى؟ 97 طالب قالوا أبغى يكون عندي شركة كبيرة، أبغى أكون غني، أبغى أصير تاجر ناجح. تمام؟ في 3 طلاب بس كتبوا أبغى مكتب محاماة خلال 5 سنين، أبغى أعمل شركة تسويق خلال 3 سنين، أنا أكون المدير التنفيذي في بنك خلال 10 سنين. بعد 20 سنة رجعوا لل100 نفر وشافوا هم فين. اكتشفوا 3 من ال100 عندهم أرصدة بنكية تفوق ال97 كلهم. مين ال3 هذول؟ هم اللي كانوا عارفين بالضبط إيش يبغوا، محددين الهدف حقهم، التحقيق المتكرر لأهداف تم تحديدها مسبقا وتستحق بذل الجهد من أجلها. تستحق بذل إيش؟ الجهد من أجلها. لازم أعرف أنا إيش أبغى. أنا ما أبغى بس أروح كده خلاص، اللي يجي مع الخيل يا شقرة، اللي يجي الحمد لله أمشي معاه وأمشي. ممكن تكون بهذا الأسلوب، بس أنت اختار تبغى تكون من ال97 هذول ولا تبغى تكون من ال3 هذول. من الآن هو اختيار شخصي إنك تعمله. طبعا حدد من الآن أنت إيش تبغى. فحدد رؤيتك. ما ينفع تفكر إيش تبغى تدرسه بس. أنت التخصص اللي يبغى تدرسه هو الوسيلة اللي توصلك لحاجة أنت تبغى تكون عليها بعد 15 سنة. قرارك اللي حتتخذه الآن والطريق اللي حتسلكه الآن حيحدد بعد 15 سنة أنت فين. خياراتك اللي تعملها اليوم تحدد أين أنت بعد 15 سنة. معظم الطلبة الخريجين اللي درسوا عندي بعد ما يتخرج وبعد ما يخش في معترك الحياة، أول حاجة لما نتقابلوا معايا والله يا دكتور أنا نفسي أرجع البكالوريوس من أول وجديد وأعيد دراستي وأسلوب دراستي من أول وآخر، أنا ما كنت فاهم الحياة. هذا تعبير يعني عام بشكل كبير تسمع من الخريجين. فأنت الآن ما زلت في بداية طريقك، لا تحط نفسك في موقف إنك بعد ما تتخرج تقول يا ريت إني رجعت من أول وجديد أفكر. فحدد إيش تبغى تكون بعد ما ترجع. تمام؟ فالدكتوراه والشهادة وسيلة لتحقيق الرؤية العليا وليست غاية. الدكتوراه والشهادة العليا هي بداية الطريق وليست نهايته. فالمبدعون، روبن شرما يقول لك المبدعون هم أشخاص يكتسبوا الدافعية من خلال الأهداف اللي يضعوها، مو من خلال رغبتهم في تحطيم الآخرين. وإينشتاين يقول لك العبقرية هي 1% موهبة و99% عمل وجهد متواصل. النجاح قلنا إيش؟ أهداف تم تحديدها مسبقا، تمام، وتستحق بذل الجهد من أجلها. نحن كثير مننا ترى يعيش في 1% هذه، تجلس تنظير أفكار رائعة يحطها، أفكار ممتازة، يحل مشاكل الأمة كلها، يحل مشاكل الجامعة ومشاكل البيت ومشاكل البيئة ومشاكل القسم اللي شغال فيه ومشاكل الإدارة كلها. لكن لما تقول له تعال اشتغل نفذ، يقول لك والله مشغول، والله تعبان، والله ظهري يوجعني. يتكلم مثلا على النظافة في الشوارع، النظافة في الشوارع سيئة، الازدحام كثير، وهو أول واحد يخالف القوانين، وهو بعد ما يخلص كلامه المنديل اللي في يده يرميه على الأرض. تمام؟ نحن نحتاج 99% الجهد هذا، ما نحتاج 1% موهبة. الموهبة عندنا كثير، موهوبين ترى عندنا ما شاء الله تبارك الله كثير، نحتاج 99%. فتبدأ عملية الآن الابتعاث بإيش؟ اختيار الجامعة. كيف اختار الجامعة؟ وين أروح؟ بيقول لك 3000 جامعة، وين أروح؟ كيف أبدأ؟ فهذه شوية معايير لاختيار الجامعة اللي أنت فيها، لأنه الخطأ ترى في اختيار الجامعة حيكلفك كثير. لا تأخذ أول شيء يجيك، لازم تفهم أنت وين رايح. لكن ممكن تروح في جامعة ما فيها التخصص اللي أنت تبغاه، أو مثلا أنت عندك تخصص دقيق ما هو موجود، أو الجامعة ضعيفة ما عندها إمكانيات توفر لك اللي أنت تطمح له. مستوى الجامعة الأكاديمي ضروري، لازم تفهم إيش مستوى الجامعة هذه. المدينة غالية ولا رخيصة؟ مدن زي بوسطن، نيويورك، واشنطن، سان فرانسيسكو، شيكاغو، لوس أنجلوس، هذه مدن إذا ما عندك مصدر دخل إضافي لا تروح، لأنه راتبك ما حيكفي. الاستوديو في هذه المدن 1800 1900 دولار، راتبك كم؟ 1800 دولار. لو رحت مدينة زي هذه يعني ثق تماما انك حتعيش ساعة ونص ساعتين بعيد عن الجامعة، او يكون معك روميت. فمستوى المعيشة مرة ضروري تنتبه له. انا كنت في جامعة مثلا في بيتسبرغ بنسلفانيا، ادفع 750 دولار ايجار شقة 3 غرف نوم مع جراج شاملة للغاز. 750 دولار وقريبة من الجامعة، الباص ربع ساعة انا في الجامعة، ماني ساكن بعيد. فيعتمد المدينة اللي انت رايح فيها ايش الخدمات المتوفرة، في باصات، في مدارس، في معامل، في اشياء. ايش متطلبات القبول حقت الجامعه؟ هل تعادل لي مواد؟ لا تنخدع بالاسم. احيانا انا ابغى اداره فاروح اشوف اداره في الجامعه دي اخذها، الاداره تحتها في 20 30 فرع، لازم اتاكد ان الفرع اللي انا ابغاه موجود في دي الجامعه. انا اول قبول حصلت عليه كان في الهندسه الطبيه في جامعه رود ايلاند، انبسطت فرحت وخلاص بديت اجراءات القبول وبديت كل حاجه. طبعا اياميها ما كان في انترنت ولا ويب سايتس، كان الكتالوج هذا الكبير اللي يرسلوا لك هو بالبريد. فبعد ما بديت اجراءات القبول طبعا مجلس القسم ومجلس الكليه لا عاد حكومه الكترونيه كان ولا شيء، شغله تاخذ لها فتره طويله. طالعت في الكتالوج اكتشفت هم هندسه طبيه كيميائيه، انا هندسه طبيه كهربائيه. انا وين وهم وين؟ انا ما افهم شيء اصلا في الهندسه الطبيه الكهربائيه الكيميائيه، لكن لاني اخذت اول شيء جاني اخطات لمجرد اني ما انتبهت اطالع اتاكد المواد اللي تدرس في القسم هي اللي انا ابغاها ولا لا، البحوث اللي في القسم هي اللي انا ابغاها ولا لا. معيار اخر هو امتحانات القبول حقت الدكتوراه، كيف شكلها وكيف اسلوبها، وحنتكلم على هذا الشيء. المرجع الرئيسي لاختيار الجامعات هو رابط وزاره التعليم العالي، الجامعات الموصى بها. لا تدرس في اي جامعه ما هي موجوده في هذا الرابط، لانه شهادتك لن تعادل. لا تحاول، لا تضيع وقتك. التعليم عن بعد، التعليم بالإنترنت، هذه كلها شهاداتها لن تعادل. ماشي الحال؟ فأول مرجع ترجع فيه تروح موقع وزارة التعليم العالي، الجامعات الموصى بها، تحط التخصص اللي تبغاه، يعطوك الجامعات كلها اللي تدرس هذا التخصص في أمريكا. هذه النقطة اللي تبدأ منها. تمام؟ بعد كده ممكن تروح موقع اليو اس نيوز اند وورلد ريبورت، يو اس نيوز رانكينج، يعطيك تصنيف الجامعات في التخصص حقك. افضل 20 جامعه، افضل 50 جامعه، ايش افضل جامعات في هذا التخصص. فانت تعمل مقارنه ما بين تصنيف الجامعات وبين الموقع حق وزاره التعليم العالي. طبعا في مواقع زي gradschools.com او graduatesschools.com في امريكا، تحط التخصص يعطيك كل الجامعات اللي تدرس هذا التخصص في امريكا. ممكن هذه برضها تساعدك، بس المرجع الرئيسي هو مين؟ الجامعات الموصى بها. لازم ترجع تتاكد انه الجامعه فيها. طبعا كل جامعه في امريكا لها معايير للقبول تختلف من مكان لمكان، مو كلهم نفس الشيء. حتى داخل الجامعه نفسها الكليات لها معايير مختلفه، والمعايير دي دوما مكتوبه على موقع القبول في القسم اللي انت تبغاه. تبغى جامعه ميشيغان، روح جامعه ميشيغان، القسم اللي انت تبغاه اضغط ادميشنز، يقول لك admission requirement ابغى منك 1 2 3 4 5 6 مكتوبه very transparent، ما في اي مشكله. والمنافسه طبعا كبيره، والوسيله الوحيده للتفضيل بين الطلاب هي ايش؟ الاوراق. يعني في النهايه امامه اوراق، فلا بد تحرص تماما انك تعبي الاوراق بطريقه صحيحه وبطريقه سليمه، مو بس تعبي اي شيء. تمام؟ ضروري تنتبه لهذه القضيه. نقطه اساسيه هنا ابغاكم تستوعبوها كويس، انه الجامعات الامريكيه تقفل باب القبول قبل بدايه الدراسه من 6 الى 8 اشهر. يعني انا لو ابغى ادرس في سبتمبر، القادم، تمام، الان انتهى، راح علي، لانه القبول قفل في نهايه مارس. ماشي؟ فاذا ابغى اروح القبول الان فانا اشوف على يناير او ماي او سبتمبر السنه اللي بعدها، واذا تاخرت كمان شهر شهرين حتى يناير حيروح علي وماي حيروح علي. فاللي بياخذ بعثه سنه لدراسه اللغه، هذه يبغاكم تفهموها كويس، خطا شائع جدا يقع فيه الطلاب. يقول لك انا اروح هناك اللغه وبراحتي ان شاء الله اجيب قبول. انت ما عندك سنه، لانه انت بديت في سبتمبر، في مارس راح عليك السبتمبر الجاي، صح؟ فانت عندك 5 اشهر بس عشان تمتحن توفل مرتين على الاقل عشان تجيب الدرجه اللي يبغوها، وجي ار اي مرتين، وتراسل ما لا يقل عن 15 جامعه في 5 اشهر فقط. صح بعثتك سنه، لكن الوقت اللي عندك عشان تبدا الدراسه هو كم؟ عشان تجيب القبول هو 5 اشهر فقط. فهذه تخلي بالك منها، ما عندك وقت، لابد تبدا بشكل سريع عشان لا تخش في دوامه التمديد، واعطوني تمديد وما اعطوني تمديد، والتمديد يعطوك 6 اشهر فقط ولجنه تخش او تترحل. في امريكا في كفاله، الجامعه هي الكفيل تبعك، تعطيك اقامه لفتره الدراسه. دراسه اللغه 1.5 سنة اكثر شيء من كده ما يعطوك. فاذا انت ما استطعت في خلال 5 شهور تجيب قبول، ممكن تعرض نفسك لمشاكل، لانه ما في احد يكفلك، لازم تدور على كفيل وتخش في دوامه ثانيه. قضيه الكفاله ده موضوع اخر. فتبدا العمليه بدور على الانترناشونال ادميشنز في الموقع حق القسم اللي انت تبغاه، وعبي استمارات القبول بشكل واضح وجيد. لابد تحدد في الاستماره متى تبغى تبدا الدراسه. ابغاه في سبتمبر، ابغى سبتمبر 2014 او جانوري 2015 او ماي 2015 او سبتمبر 2016 15. لازم احدد. ماشي الحال؟ في بعض الجامعات تسمح لك تبدا في سبتمبر او في جانوري او في ماي. في بعض الجامعات يقول لك sorry if you miss September you have to wait 1 whole year for next September. we don't admit، ما يقبلوا احد في جانوري ولا في ماي، ما نقبل الا في سبتمبر. كل جامعه لها سياستها، فلا بد تحدد انت ايش تبغى. طبعا تدفع الرسوم حقت التسجيل ويفتحوا لك الملف. في بعض الجامعات ترفض تماما انها تشوف الاوراق حقتك او تعمل اي حاجه في الابلكيشن حقتك الا لما تخلصها كلها. في جامعات فليكسبل، ممكن ترسل لهم الترانسكريبت يطالعوا فيها يقولوا لك سوري ما راح نقبلك، لا تضيع وقتك. في جامعات ممكن يطالع في الترانسكريبت يقول لك اوكي نحن ممكن نتفاهم، عبي الاستمارات. فضروري انت ايش؟ تفاوض مكتب القبول من خلال الايميل اللي موجود على الموقع. try to negotiate. بس المهم انك تبدا البروسيس. معاهد اللغه الانجليزيه القبول فيها اسهل شيء، اسهل حاجه. معاهد اللغه الانجليزيه القبول فيها ما يحتاج تروح لمكتب ولا يحتاج تروح لاي احد. عبي استماره القبول من الاونلاين وادفع رسوم التسجيل واديهم الضمان مالي، يعطوك قبول خلال اسبوع. ما يحتاج تدفع 3-4 آلاف ريال في مكتب، ما تسوى الشغله. والاستماره حقت القبول ايش فيها؟ يبغى اسمك وسنك وعنوانك وفين درست الثانويه وايش شو انت يعني ايش قصتك، بس كانك بتعمل ايميل اكاونت ولا تويتر اكاونت ولا. فما تستاهل المساله انك تدفع عليها فلوس. طبعا معاهد اللغه نوعين، في معاهد خاصه وفي معاهد تابعه للجامعات. المعاهد اللي تابعه للجامعات تشرف عليها مكتب الدراسه اللغويه. ففي نظري انا معاهد الجامعات اقوى من المعاهد الخاصه، لانها يعني هدفها اكاديمي وليس ربحي. تمام؟ معاهد اللغه الدخول فيها لا يعني انك عديت التوفل ولا يعني انك عديت الجي ار اي. معاهد اللغه تساعدك، تعطيك دورات، تعطيك لغه، لكن دخولك فيها لا يعني انك خلصت التوفل او جبته. لابد تشد على حيلك في مساله التوفل والجي ار اي، لانه الحصول على قبول في معهد اللغه لا يعني انك حصلت على قبول في الجامعه. معهد اللغه شيء والجامعه شيء. وقلنا خلال 5 شهور لازم تمتحن توفل مرتين، وجي ار اي مرتين عشان تجيب الدرجات اللي يبغوها. هذا ان شاء الله اذا مرتين تكفي انك تجيب التوفل والايلتس اللي تبغاه الجامعات. It's not flipping. Can you please? Yes. Okay. طيب في القبول في المعاهد التخصصية، طبعا في زي في بعض المعاهد اللي تعطي دورات لاجتياز التوفل والجي ار اي واليو اس ام ال اي والجي مات. اليو اس ام ال اي اسلوبه مختلف، بس المعاهد دي برضه ممكن تعطيك كفالة عشان تدرس فيها دورة 6 أشهر وتجيب منها يعني يساعدوك على انك تستعد للامتحان الجي ار اي. لكن برضو دخول الدورات لا يعني الحصول على الدرجات المطلوبة، لانه هذه دافعية شخصية عندك، لابد انت تشد حيلك، لابد انت تدرس. البعض يقول اوكي اخالط الامريكان، اتصاحب مع الامريكان واخرج معاهم احسن لغتي. نعم مطلوب، مهم، ضروري، بس مجرد مصاحبتهم لا يعني انك حتتعرف لغة جديدة، لانك بعد اسبوعين 3 حتلاقوا نفسكم بتكرروا نفس الكلام اللي كنتوا تقولوه قبل اسبوعين 3. ما فيش معلومات جديدة ولا اضافات جديدة. تخالطهم بس بشرط انك تحددوا اجتماعات دورية تناقشوا مواضيع جديدة، تضطرك انك تقرا اشياء جديدة عشان تبدا تتعلم معلومات جديدة، تسمع منهم ويسمعوا منك، تطرح وجهة نظرك وتسمع وجهة نظرهم في مواضيع جديدة مختلفة. تفرضوا على نفسكم الخروج من اوكي نطلع السوق، نطلع مش عارف فين، نروح نجي ونتقابل، خلاص هذا كلام يصير عام ودارج بعد اسبوعين، ما في شيء جديد. ضروري تدخل في حلقات نقاش، ضروري تدخل في هذه المسألة. عشان خطاب الغرض من الدراسة statement of purpose، حنتكلم الحين كيف تكتب، فيا ريت نركز، لأنه سمعتوا أنتوا الثلاثة بيقول لك statement of purpose هذه اللي تمثلك، لأنه ما هو شايفك، أمامه 1000 واحد ورق، ما هو شايف أمامه إلا أوراق أنت كاتبها. فتحرى الصدق، ترى شافوا آلاف الابليكيشنز، فشغل وكما تعلمون وأنتم أنتم الأول والآخر والظاهر والباطن، الكلام هذا البكش بلغتنا في الحجاز ما يصلح، لأنهم على طول حيلقطوها. قال لك يقول لك أول حاجة يشوفوها، وبعدين في statement of purpose ready online، ماشي الحال. there are softwares now، برامج الآن أجيب الستيتمنت اوف بيربس أحطها، يقول لي ترى نقلها من الموقع ده ومن الموقع ده ومن الموقع ده ومن الموقع ده. فلو أنت ناقل من الإنترنت حيحط عليك إكس، لأنه ما يعرف أنت مين. فتحرى الصدق، خليك صادق مع نفسك. فالعمود اللي على اليمين بيتكلم على المضمون، ضروري جدا تهتم بذا الموضوع. المهم إنك تعمل statement of purpose لكل قسم. ليش؟ لأنه لابد هدفها إنك تبرز إنه خلفيتك العلمية وخبراتك وطموحك واللي درسته أنت كله في حياتك واللي تطمح لتحقيقه ممكن من خلال هذا القسم. واضح؟ يعني أنا مثلا كنت أيام الثانوية، مثلا أديكم مثال، أنا كنت أيام الثانوية أحب الأجهزة، أحب ألعب في الأجهزة، أحب أصلح اللمبات، المراوح، شغل السباكة بيدي، ما كان يجي أحد يشتغل في البيت إلا بعد ما أحاول أصلحها. عندي حب للهندسة، عندي حب لخدمة الناس، عندي حب للأحياء، فتولد لي حب التعامل مع الأجهزة، فدخلت كلية الهندسة. تعرفت على قسم الهندسة الطبية، لأنه الهندسة الطبية فيها خير، مساعدة للبشر وللناس، فشدني هذا التخصص فدخلت فيه وتخرجت بمعدل عالي، وجاتني منحة إني أحضر ماجستير ودكتوراه. وقبل ما أدخل في المنحة اشتغلت في شركة وكنت مهندس أجهزة وتعاملت مع الموضوع واحتاج لخبرة أكبر، ولقيت تخصصكم وجامعتكم موجود فيها هذا التخصص، وأنا عندي منحة تدفع فلوس الدراسة وتدفع فلوس التذاكر رايح جاي وفلوس معيشتي في أمريكا. فدراستي عندكم حتساعدني إني أتخصص في الأجهزة في هذا المجال، فيا ريت تقبلوني كماجستير بداية من الفصل الدراسي المعين. very specific، أكتب خلفيتي العلمية، تمام، وأكتبها بأسلوب حرفي، إني أكتب خلفيتي العلمية بحيث إنها تتلائم مع اللي ما هو موجود في القسم. يعني أنا أكتب خلفيتي العلمية هندسة كهربائية وشغل كهربائية وحب الكهرباء، والقسم ما فيه كهرباء، ما حيقبلوني. لازم أفهم القسم إيش هو، لازم تشير إنه عندك بعثة، تمام، لأنه موضوعها مرة مهم بالنسبة لهم. لازم تحدد إيش تبغى تدرس، إيش هدفك في الحياة، إيش تبغى، لأنهم يخافوا من الطلبة اللي يجي عندهم في القسم بعدين يكتشف إنه تخصصه مو موجود، فحيواجه مشكلة في الجامعة وفي القسم وفي الكلية. إذا عندك مواطن ضعف أيام الدراسة حاول تتعاملها معها في خطاب الغرض من الدراسة. حدد نوع القبول، تبغى قبول مشروط، ماجستير، متى فصل الدراسي، وحدد انت تاريخك. طبعا السيرة الذاتية لابد تبرز الخلفية العلمية، الخبرات حقتك، المشاركات الاجتماعية حقتك. ممكن تستعمل القوالب الجاهزة حقت وورد، ما هي مشكلة، بس هم يهمهم يشوفوا الخبرات الدراسية، الوظائف، الخبرات التخصصية، الدورات اللي أخذتها، إذا عندك تطوع، أعمال تطوعية، لأنها برضه عملية مهمة بالنسبة لهم. أو أنت عضو مثلا في الIEEE ولا أي جمعيات تخصصية في تخصصك. خطابات التوصية زي ما تفضلوا. خطابات التوصية كل ما كانت من شخص أعلى مرتبة علمية، مثلا أستاذ مساعد، فوق أستاذ مشارك، بعدين أستاذ دكتور. الأستاذ الدكتور البروفيسور خطاب التوصية حقه أقوى من الأستاذ المساعد. خطاب التوصية لابد يجي من شخص يعرفك، ما ينفع يجيك خطاب توصية والله كان جاري، تمام، كنا مع بعض في المكتب. لا، لابد خطاب توصية يأتي من شخص تعامل معك في مشروع، درسك مادة، اشتغلتوا مع بعض في بروجكت كبير، هو كان رئيسك في العمل، عشان هو يبين من خلال كلامه علاقته فيك وإيش المميزات اللي تتوفر فيك من هذا الموضوع. طبعا كشف الدرجات، زي ما قلنا لا تحاول تخفي المشاكل الأكاديمية، ترى حتظهر. هذول ناس عندها خبرة، شافوا آلاف الطلبة، على طول يعرف فين يروح يدور. حتى في التعامل مع الملحقية الثقافية، يا جماعة الملحقية عندك مرشد تعامل قبلك مع 2000-3000 طالب، فلا تحاول تخبي المشاكل، خليك صادق، خليك يعني واضح معهم، يساعدوك بشكل عام إن شاء الله. طبعا الضمان المالي لابد يعني تجيبه. خطوات القبول، طبعا تبدأ بهذا المسكين اللي تعبان اللي طفشان، ترى سهلة العملية، أوراق كده تجلس تروق وتبدأ تعبيها وتظبطها، تحط 15 نسخة من كل ورقة وتبدأ ترسل للجامعات. فهذا المسكين كده ظهره منحني بيعبي الأوراق دي ويرسلها للجنة القبول. لجنة القبول يا تقول ناقص كذا تروح تعدل الأوراق، أو تقول لك سلام عليكم رفض، فتروح تشوف لك جامعة ثانية. المهم في الموضوع هو الزنبرك اللي في الخلف، صح؟ هذا الزنبرك لو مو شغال الظهر حيفضل ايش؟ منحني دائما. فدور على الزنبرك حقك اللي يخليك تشتغل وتخلص العملية دي. ترى مسألة سهلة، عبي الأوراق زي لما تروح تجيب بطاقة الأحوال مثلا، يبغى لك الهمة بس إنك تروح. أول ما تروح بسيطة تتسهل، تعبي الأوراق اللي يبغوها، تعبي الاستمارات اللي يبغوها، تعبي الإجراءات وتخلص. لكن عشان تبدأ الخطوة دي تلاقي الواحد يقعد يفكر أروح بكرة، أروح بعده، تتأجل، ما في داعي. دور على الزنبرك ده اللي يخليك تشتغل بشكل سريع ومتواصل. طبعا يعني قدم ل 15 جامعة، حاول تختبر أكثر من اختبار، حاول تتواصل مع أعضاء هيئة التدريس. لو في دكتور مثلا تخصصه شبيه بتخصصك تواصل معاه بالإيميل، قل له أنا أبغى أجي أشتغل عندك، هذه السي في حقي وعندي بعثة. لو في دكتور قبلك من القسم قال أنا مستعد أشتغل معك، ممكن يوفر عليك وقت طويل. طبعا لو زرت القسم حيكون لك يعني طبعا نتكلموا على مسارين، في ماجستير برسالة وماجستير بدون رسالة. الدكتوراه هنا نقطة مهمة، ضروري تقرأ كتيب أنظمة الدراسات العليا في القسم اللي انت رايح له بتمعن شديد. كل قسم انت رايح له في شيء اسمه Graduate School Book، مكتوب فيه متى الامتحانات، ايش المواد الرئيسية، ايش المواد الفرعية، ايش التخصصات اللي تقدر تدرسها. ضروري تلتزم بهذا الكتيب وتقراه. حاول تتعرف على الكواليفاينج اكزام تبعهم. حاول من الآن تفكر، ترى مدينة الملك عبدالعزيز مثلا على موقعها الخطة الاستراتيجية للمملكة، ايش مواطن البحث التسعة، في 9 مواطن المملكة بتركز عليها خلال السنوات القادمة، 9 نقاط. فكر، شوف، حاول تدرس في بحث ورسالة مرتبطة بشيء البلد تبغاه. البلد بتركز على اقتصاد المعرفة، بتركز على أعمال الريادة، بتركز على الموهبة، بتركز على قضية الموارد البشرية، بتركز على الأمور هذه التقنية اللي موجودة، الخطة الوطنية التقنية للمملكة. حاول تفهم أنت توجهات البلد إيش هي، واختار لك يعني فين تبغى تكون في هذه المسألة. في الجامعات الأمريكية كل المرشدين يرحبوا فيك أنك تروح تزورهم. روح للمرشد، إيش البحوث اللي أنت شغال فيها، إيش بتسوي أنت، ياخذك على المعمل ويعرفك على الطلاب، يوريك ايش بيسوي، تحضر جلساتهم، تحضر اجتماعاتهم. روح تزور اقل شيء 6-7 دكاتره في القسم اللي انت فيه قبل ما تقرر انت ايش تختار بشكل عام. اسال عن الدكتور في القسم، اسال الطلاب الدكتور متعاون مو متعاون، موجود مو موجود في القسم ولا شغال برا. حبيب ولا مو حبيب، عنده مشاكل مع أحد ولا لا، ترى يعني لها أثر. ترى الطلبة لا يعني لهم مجتمعهم الخاص اللي يتكلموا فيه، يعرفوا هذه الحاجات بشكل عام. لو استطعت انك تشتغل في مشروع مدعوم من شركة، حتلاقي الدكتور ده يضغط عليك بسرعة عشان تخلص بسرعة. أنا لي زميل كوري خلص الدكتوراه حقته في 3 سنوات في الهندسة الكهربائية بعد الماجستير 3 سنوات. ليش؟ لأنه نصيبه جاء في بحث مدعوم من وزارة الدفاع الأمريكية. وزارة الدفاع كانت على رأس الفريق إنه لازم تخلصه في 3 سنوات، فكانوا يضغطوا عليه ويشدوا عليه عشان يخلص في 3 سنوات واستطاع. فالمشاريع المدعومة أفضل من المشاريع الغير مدعومة. بشكل عام الدكتوراه لابد تختار اللغة، تجتاز اللغة والتخصص، تحصل على قبول، تجتاز المواد. لأنه في الدكتوراه يقول لك عشان توصل للدكتوراه لابد كل المواد حقتك مثلا تكون A+ أو A- أو B+، كل قسم على حسب وضعه. الدكتوراه لها كواليفاينج اكزام من 2 أو 3 أو 1، لابد تتعرف عليه، لابد تجتازه، وتختار مجال الرسالة، تختار المرشد والموضوع، تعمل حاجة اسمها ثيسيس بروبوزل. الثيسيس بروبوزل هذا عقد بينك وبين لجنة البحث، إنه يا جماعة أنا حاشتغل في ذا الموضوع وحأعمل التجربة الفلانية اللي فيها 1 2 3 4 5، وحجمع الريزلتس وأجمعها في تقرير وأسلمها أمامكم، توافقوا على شغلي؟ إذا اللجنة وافقت على هذا الموضوع، هذا عقد بينك وبينهم إنه لو نفذتوا بحذافير الاتفاق أخذت الدكتوراه. يعني هي الخطوة الرئيسية في الدكتوراه هو الثيسيس بروبوزل. ماشي الحال؟ فتشد حيلك فيه، تحاول تخلصه بأكبر قدر ممكن من السرعة، وترى هو يعني هو اللي يشدوا عليك فيه في اللجنة، يبهدلوك فيه عشان يتأكدوا إنك سويته. وبعد كده تسوي التجارب، تكتب النتائج وتدافع عن الرسالة وترجع للوطن. ليش؟ لتحقيق الرؤية. في فرص تدريب صيفي في الجامعات، حاول تدور عليها، ما تشتغل برا. F1 F2 طبعا ما يشتغل أبدا. F1 ممنوع تماما، حنيجي هذه النقطة. ما تشتغل في خارج الجامعة أو حتى داخل الجامعة إلا بموافقة الانترناشنال أوفيس، ممنوع هذا الشيء. في فرص تدريبية كثيرة تكون داخل الجامعات، في تطوع في الأندية الطلابية، في مجموعات علمية وبحثية، مؤتمرات موجودة. حاول تنمي قدراتك في هذه المسألة. طبعا أنت مسؤول عن وضعك القانوني، تمام؟ كل جامعة في بداية السنة حيكون عندها أسبوع دورة أورينتيشن. حاول تحضر هذه الأورينتيشن لأنها تعطيك فكرة عن القوانين والأنظمة اللي لابد تنتبه لها. كفيلك، الجامعة هي كفيلك، ما تشتغل برا كفيلك. يعني إيش؟ إذا أنت جامعة ميشيغان كفلتك، ما تدرس إلا في جامعة ميشيغان، ما تروح تدرس في جامعة ثانية، تترحل. تمام؟ ما فيها مزح هذه الشغلة، لأنه لما بتسجل في الجامعة الريكورد حقك أصلاً بيروح لمكتب الأمن القومي والمباحث بشكل متواصل، أونلاين سيستم متوصلين في بعض، ما في يعني طبعاً F1 ممنوع يعمل. العمل في تعريفهم مو إني أشتغل عند أحد، العمل هو إني أقدم خدمة لشخص مقابل مالي. ماشي؟ العمل هي إني أقدم خدمة لشخص أو لهيئة أو لفئة أو لمجموعة مقابل مردود مادي، هذا اللي يسموه عمل. يعني أروح أوصل واحد بالسيارة وأخذ منه فلوس، هذا عمل. أساعد واحد في إنه ينقل بيته من مكان لمكان، هذا عمل. فهذا شيء يخالف قوانين الهجرة. في فرص عمل محدودة للF1 بمعرفة مكتب الانترناشنال أوفيس، لابد تتواصل معهم. طبعا F2 المرافقين لا يدرس ولا يشتغل. F2 لو يبغى يدرس لازم يحول على F1، وحيكون لها تفصيلات هذه المسألة. طبعا نظام التعليم العالي خلاص إن شاء الله، هي نظام التعليم العالي لابد تتعرف عليه. زمان كنا نسميه الكتاب الأخضر، بس غيروا لونه الآن. وزارة التعليم العالي كان عندها كتاب أخضر في نظام ولوائح الابتعاث. لوائح الابتعاث الآن موجودة أونلاين على موقع وزارة التعليم العالي، رائع حقيقة، مجهود جبار، مكتوب فيه حقوقك من الألف للياء. أنت المسؤول على متابعة حقوقك، أنت المسؤول على متابعة الفرص اللي تتوفر لك. وزارة التعليم العالي تعطيك مثلا راتب شهر في كل مرحلة دراسية بدل كتب، لك إنك تحضر مؤتمر في كل مرحلة دراسية، ممكن تعمل رحلات علمية للسعودية، ممكن يدعموا بحثك العلمي، ممكن يدوك مواد إضافية تدرسها، ممكن يدوك دورات إضافية تساعدك في بحثك. أنت المسؤول إنك تعرف على دي الفرص. فلما تتواصل مع الملحقية، خلي هذا الكلام هو مرجعك، سيبك من القيل والقال. قريت في منتدى وفلان صاحبي صار له وهذاك ما أعرف مين إيش حصل له، سيبك، هذا كله كلام فارغ. لوائح الابتعاث هي المرجع تبعك. لما ترسل خطاب للملحقية استنادا للبند الرابع من المادة الخامسة في لائحة كذا، وحيث أن الشروط تنطبق علي أرجو منكم التكرم بتعميم من يلزم لصرف هذا الأمر لي. كذا يكون كلامك لما تتواصل مع الملحقية، تمشي أمورك ما عندك مشاكل. أما تلف وتدور وتقعد تحاول يعني تخبي، ما تعرف على هذا الكتاب لوائح الابتعاث، ممتاز جدا، مهم جدا يكون عندك وتعرفه. حاول تنشر علمي، حاول يعني تحضر مؤتمرات، استفيد من آخر حاجة أوقف فيها إنه يعني التنكر لثقافتك يزيدك شعبية. غير صحيح، غير صحيح أبدا. بالعكس، في مجتمع هناك يحترموك زي ما أنت، لو أنت ملتزم بثقافتك وبأدبك وما تعاذي أحد وحالك حال نفسك، ما حد يقرب جنبك ولا حد يعني يآذيك، بالعكس يحترموك أكثر. أما لما تحاول تصير مثلا يعني نماذج، بعض الشباب تلاقي محمد يسمي نفسه مو وخالد يسمي نفسه كي، يحاول يعني يقلب الكاب علشان على أمل إنه يحصل acceptance، ما حتحصل على acceptance. بالعكس، لو أنت زي ما أنت حيقدروك ويحترموك بشكل أكبر مما تتخيلوا. ويعني خليك نشيط في الجامعة وخليك يعني متواصل. أنت يعني سمو الأمير تركي الفيصل كان عنده كلمة، وحتى معالي الأستاذ خالد الجبير، عادل الجبير السفير والملحق كلهم يقولوا نحن عندنا أيامها كان 19,000 سفير، الآن كم؟ 70,000 سفير للمملكة موجودين في أمريكا. فحاول أخلاقك ومثلك والتزامك وانضباطك هو اللي يخليك يعني يفرض احترامه على الآخرين. ويعني سلامتكم ويعطيكم العافية.
Thank you, Dr. Nzih, and very informative, really, presentation. Hopefully, especially it's in Arabic. Hopefully, our audience really utilize this opportunity. Dr. Sahel, it is your turn, and we'll give you 15 minutes to talk about training and the opportunities while you are in the United States.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. I think this is a very boring topic that I was given, but an important one. And it's an important one because a lot of times people do not understand how important it is to follow the timeline and some of the rules and regulations that concern visa processing and immigration into United States. One of my biggest challenges, so first of all, let me tell you why I have the experience and the expertise to even talk about this. In the 3 institutions that I have been, including the one that I'm currently in, I'm actually the designated officer who signs off on the visas at the end of the day. So if anything goes wrong with the United States Customs and Immigration Services, basically I am the person who's actually going to be responsible. My biggest challenge, if there is any with the students from Saudi Arabia, biggest challenge is that they do not understand that they have to maintain that there is a due date. Everything, when my office calls them, they say, Inshallah Bukra. So everything is going to happen tomorrow. And unfortunately, with some of these immigration policies and procedures, that tomorrow for them never comes, and that creates a problem. So I'm going to try to take you over, this is the outline of my conversation with you today. We're going to talk about the various types of US visas that are relevant to you as students and as trainees in United States. What are the restrictions on those types of visas? What you can do and what you cannot do when you have those visas. There are tons of training opportunities for you as an undergraduate and graduate, tons of training opportunities, okay? And you should avail of those training opportunities. And what can your family do when you come in on these visas? Because many of you come with your families and clearly they must have an outlet as to what they're going to do. So here are a very short list of visas that are available for the student. Dr. Naz has already pointed out the F1 visas. These are normally given for both undergraduate and graduate. So if you're coming into United States, and if your intent is to take courses towards a degree, you have to have an F1 visa. Remember, if your intent is to take few courses which are not going to go towards a degree, you do not have to have a visa. You could actually come on a B1, B2, or a visitor visa, just register into a continuing college in any university and take 1 or 2 courses. But those courses will not go towards a degree. But if you're in a college or a post-secondary education, if you want to take a degree and you take courses towards a degree, you have to have a visa. If you have F1 visa, then your spouse and your children who are under the age of 21 years will actually have a F2 visa. Okay, so remember, if your spouse and children under the age of 21, not the spouse could be of any age, by the way, but your children under the age of 21 have to have an F2 visa. There are vocational students who are actually now, we are seeing that these students are coming in from Middle East, particularly also from Saudi Arabia. Vocational students are students who are actually, the ones that we are seeing are the ones who are coming into professions such as becoming senior technicians in aeronautical engineering. Okay, but they are technical fields. They are not aeronautical engineering fields. These are technical fields, and we are seeing students coming into that particular area. So that is a vocational student, and they will get an M1 visa, and their spouse and their children will get a M2 visa. J1 are exchange visitors. These are students, these are not really students, they are already graduates who are coming to United States for either a training or for a fellowship. So for example, if you are a MBBS from Saudi Arabia, and if you want to come and do a residency in United States, you will actually be issued a J1 visa. If you're already a PhD from anywhere else and you want to come and do research fellowship in United States, you would be issued a J1 visa, and your spouse and your children will be issued a J2 visa. Now here are the training opportunities that are available, and I must tell you that Saudi students are not fully availing themselves of these opportunities. Okay, and one of the reasons they don't avail of themselves of these opportunities is because they think that they are getting financial aid, and these training opportunities are really to get some money into their pocket. Well, these training opportunities are much more than money. They're an opportunity for you to actually, while you're a student, to work and gain experience in your field of study. And you as students should take maximum advantage of these training opportunities. So you could be a research assistant, you could be a teaching assistant, depending on what your field is. You could be what is called the UROP, the Undergraduate Research Opportunity Program, and there are many other training opportunities, but these are the 3 that are available. Unfortunately, at the present time, work study is not available for non-US citizens or those who are not resident aliens. Now, we have to keep in mind, and this is something which, where some of the students go wrong, while you are enrolled in a program and the courses are ongoing, during that period, you can actually only be part-time. And a part-time by United States Customs and Immigration Services is defined as no more than 20 hours a week. So you have to be part-time. Please do not go over this particular time, because that will actually, you will be considered out of your compliance with the immigration status. During the summer, many of the students actually come back home. And they come back to Saudi Arabia instead of actually availing themselves of the opportunity of becoming a full-time during that period. Because remember, most of you are going to be there for a very defined period of time, and ultimately you're coming back home. So while you are there, maximize your opportunity for gaining experience in your field of study. Okay, so many of you actually do not avail of this opportunity of doing a full-time during summer. Now, there is no other approval required. Because you are working on campus and you are working in your field of study, it's what is called the employment by incident. It's an incident status, and it is approved. Okay, so formal approval is required. But keep in mind that you have to work only 20 hours a week during the course of your semester, and during the vacation you can actually work for up to 40 hours. Now, there are also other on-campus opportunities available. For example, a Starbucks may actually have an on-campus store, and they may be selling on campus, and I don't advise you to work at Starbucks, but I'm just giving you an example. But the Starbucks may have an on-campus store. Well, that particular store is actually considered to be a third-party vendor, but it's on campus. And you can actually work there, but the limitations are the same. However, if the university has given you a TA or an RA position, you cannot work even in that particular job. Okay, you have to work in what your TA or your RA or research assistant or teaching assistant position has been given to you. Now, there are tons of off-campus work. One of the universities in the United States which is actually known for a lot of off-campus work is Drexel University. They have what is called a cooperative program or co-op program, which is, there's a requirement that as part of your curriculum, you're actually going to work in companies outside Drexel. For example, if you are in the College of Pharmacy at Drexel, it is required that you actually work for at least 9 credit hours in companies such as Pfizer or Bayer or any other company out there. So it's a requirement that you actually work, but there has to be, it is an important thing, the location must be, there has to be affiliated. You can't simply pick up a company outside and say, I want to work in this company. The company has to be affiliated. The company needs to understand that this work is part of your curriculum, and there is a deliverable at the end of this particular curriculum that they have to maintain. Okay, so it has to be affiliated with the university, it must be a part of your curriculum, and it must be an important part of your study. So for example, if you're studying computer sciences, but you want to work in a pharmaceutical company in drugs, those are incompatible field of study. Okay, so you have to be in a compatible field of study when you're doing that. Again, the rules of engagement are the same, part-time during the school year and full-time during your annual vacation. Authorization has to be required, but this authorization is largely given by an office like myself. My staff is going to authorize it, and you can then work. Again, TAs and RAs are not eligible for this off-campus work. Remember, in order to avail of this, you have to be enrolled as a full-time student. Okay, this is important, and a full-time student is defined by many universities in the United States as having a minimum of 9 credit hours per semester. Okay, some universities may have a different, so keep in mind what your university's full-time status is. You have to be in status as defined by the United States Custom and Immigration Services, and I'll share with you a slide, I won't go through it, as to what that in status means. You have to be in an F1 status for at least 9 months before you can apply for any of these TA or RA positions. There is an exception, and I'll share with you that exception in a minute. And you have to be eligible for optional practical training for you are eligible for optional practical training for up to 12 months. Now, for you to be in status, here are some of the requirements. If you follow the policies and procedures of your international office as far as your visa is concerned, you will 99.9% of the time will be in status. Okay, so this is not a long list, laundry list of things that you have to remember. Just make sure that you follow the rules and regulations of your office. Now, if you come and your spouse and your children come, your husband or your wife comes with you, then, and I'm talking to both the male and the females, then they will issue you an F2 visa, but as long as your children are of less than 21 years of age. Okay? The primary, for this visa to be issued, you, the primary sponsor, have a F1 visa. You must be enrolled as a full-time student, and you must be in status. If you're out of status, your spouse is also out of status. Okay? And your F2 dependents are not eligible to work. You keep this in mind.
Professor
Your
Zahel,
kids who are less than 21 years of age and up to...
Professor Zahel, 2 minutes.
Okay. Your kids can actually go into secondary school up to high school. But beyond that, they have to obtain their own F1 visa. And I think I will stop there and leave the rest for our discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Professor. And we'll just open the door, or rather the floor, for questions and answer. And we'll just start with 2 questions from the male section, and then we'll go for the female for the other 2 questions. And we'll keep alternating for a few minutes, and I'm sure you will get the chance to visit the booth of our guests, talk to them more, and I'm sure you will have a lot of exposure.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm Professor Jamal Nazal from Shakra University. I have some question to Professor Reed. I think thank you very much, first of all, for your wonderful notes and lectures. But I wonder that yesterday before I met another session with another American university. Unfortunately, they said the same word about that they are worried about our students when they came there to USA, that there are some sort of cheating. The cheating, يعني I'm not comfortable about this word. Yani we can use another word. That our students, when they go there, so one of their behavior and one of their attitude, that they are trying to cheat some sort of knowledge, some sort of, a lot of things. So unfortunately, I feel uncomfortable about this word, because I know that our students, they are well,
very clear. The question is very clear.
Okay.
Very clear. Go ahead.
Okay.
Did you have a question?
Okay, the question, do you feel really that our students, when they reach there, they are trying to misunderstand the rules, or are they trying to cheat some sort of knowledge, some sort of, are they cheating in their studying, their courses, their behavior?
I think I actually said that there may be confusion between when it's appropriate to share, and that professors, if people are sharing or using sources when people aren't supposed to be, then professors will think it's cheating. And it's not for any one particular nationality. And there's confusion for a lot of students, because there are times when people are encouraged to work together. They're encouraged to go to the library and use sources. And for a lot of students, it's not always clear when they're supposed to do that and when they're not. And if it's not clear, and then the professor says it's cheating, then they're in trouble. So I'm encouraging people to recognize that there can be confusion, so that they don't get in that kind of trouble.
So we have one more question over there, I think.
Good morning. My name is Jawad Rujan. I'm from Saudi Aramco. I just want to clarify one issue in regard to F2 visa. I think in the last slide you said, or you state, or it was written, you did not address it, you didn't have the time, that F2 visa cannot do any academic other than vocational or part-time study. Is that right?
That is correct.
It's correct.
So
Aren't you creating a conflict between the opportunity? Like if I go as a spouse, in accordance with the Saudi government educational law, I'm eligible as a spouse to study just like my other spouse. You are just, it's not only a conflict, it's depriving an opportunity for education.
And let me just clarify that. So if you, let us say that you go as a dependent of your spouse, you will get an F2 visa. However, you can convert it into F1 if you intend to go into college or post-secondary education. So nobody is stopping you. So let us say you go there, you identify a program, and you would like to study that particular program. No, there's no barrier in conversion of F2 to F1.
Can you do it while you are in the US?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
We'll go for the female. We have mic number 6. Somebody's asking over there. Yeah, please. Here.
شكرا. أتمنى من سعادة الدكتور إبراهيم الحركان أن يترجم ما أريد نقله. أولا سعادة الدكتور نزيه أفاد صراحة، وأسمح لي أن أخذ منك ورقة قبول لنقل ما تفضلت به من درر ثمينة لبعض طالباتنا في المرحلة الثانوية في مكة والذين تعذر عليهم الحضور. وأشكر حضور اليوم، يعني اليوم الحضور أكبر حضور من بناتنا قائدات المستقبل في هذا المؤتمر، فهل تأذن لي بذلك؟ هذه الالتماس الأول. الدكتور محمد الحركان، سمعنا أن بعض طلبتنا وهم كما تفضل الدكتور نزيه الحماد عددهم 50,000، هل صحيح ما تناقلته بعض المواقع الإلكترونية من رجوعهم بالإيدز؟ من المسؤول؟ وهل هذا صحيح أم أنه يعني فيه مبالغة؟ هذا الأمر هل يعلمه المشاركون الآن وهل سمعوا به؟ وما هي الاحتياطات اللازمة لصحة أبناء هذا الوطن فهم عدة المستقبل؟ الأمر الثالث، بدأت حقيقة جامعة أم القرى والتي أتشرف بوجودي فيها بتهيئة المبتعثين والمبتعثات من خلال تنظيم أسبوع يهيئهم لما سيواجهونه هناك من تحديات كبيرة صحية وعقدية واجتماعية، ونجح ذاك الأسبوع بتقدير ممتاز حقيقة. فهل بالإمكان نقل هذه التجربة إلى كل جامعاتنا الحبيبة 22 جامعة في المملكة؟ شكرا للجميع، كان الطرح جميل جدا وممتع. شكرا لمدير الجلسة، بارك الله فيك.
طيب، السلام عليكم. شكرا يا دكتور على تعليقك. بالنسبة لما تداولته بعض المنتديات على قضية عودة الطلبة بالإيدز، أنا أول مرة أسمعه. ما أعتقد أنه تصريح صحيح، ما أعتقد أنه من مصادر موثوقة أو من مصادر صحيحة. أما بالنسبة للدورة الأسبوعية اللي تقدم لتهيئة المبتعثين، ففي دورة شبيهة تقام في جامعة الملك عبدالعزيز، جامعة الملك سعود، في المجمعة. معظم الجامعات الموجودة في المملكة عندها برامج تهيئة للمعيدين والمحاضرين الخاصين فيها، وأنا سبق وأني دعيت لأكثر من جامعة أني أقدم دورة كيف تجيب القبول، كيف تتواصل مع الجامعات، فهذا شيء يعني متداول. حتى وزارة التعليم العالي في برنامج الابتعاث الخادم الحرمين تقيم ما شاء الله تبارك الله في جدة وفي الدمام وفي الرياض برنامج تأهيلي للطلبة المبتعثين والطالبات، يحضروا المئات ويحضر فيه أعضاء. سبق ودعيت أنا ومجموعة من أعضاء هيئة التدريس للحديث على قضية الدراسة في أمريكا ومختلف دول العالم بشكل عام.
Basically, the question was related to some of our students, which is, it is a rumor, in fact, in the media, which uncontrollable media, which everybody knows or rather aware of. As it says, together and alone, everybody is just working on all these Facebooks and Twitters and WhatsApp and whatever, but doesn't mean it is true. The question was related to, is there really a lot of students, Saudi students who came back with AIDS? And it's just a rumor. We never heard about it, but it could happen, but it doesn't mean it's something that is spread around. The other one is just she was really complimenting the Dr. Nzih for his presentation, Arabic presentation, and I would like to thank her for really asking for the presentation, and I hope this presentation will be uploaded in our conference so they will utilize Dr. Nzih's presentation and the other also. We'll go for mic number 5.
Yes, this is Iqbal Darandari, Vice Dean Assistant for Graduate Studies Deanship at King Said University. Thank you for this informative workshop. I want clarification from our presenters regarding the difference or the implications for graduating from a program, master program, that is with courses and without thesis versus the one with the thesis. So that is regarding the marketplace, the employment, and regarding completing the studies. for the students, because some of our graduate students seems not to differentiate between the implications for graduating from that program versus the other. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question well.
The programs, you said you have two different, like the same program provided with a thesis or without, right? So one of them is like research-based or more research-based.
So what's the question?
So the implications for getting a job, what kind of jobs for the graduates
okay.
from the program?
I'll
thesis?
clarify this. Basically, she's asking if you go for non-thesis option or thesis option, what would be the opportunity as a job opportunity for either? So she needs
for
an
master's.
explanation.
And continuing the studies,
It
the
pro-
PhD.
It probably depends on the discipline, but master's degrees without thesis might be school teaching, working for research, more research, theoretical research as opposed to actually laboratory or clinical work. So that's probably the key difference. But truthfully, having a research thesis gives people that preparation to better understand research and also sets them up to go to a PhD program.
Often the non-thesis master's degree is given to a student who essentially fails the qualification to go on to the research. So it's often called a terminal master's degree, and people do go into teaching, they do go into laboratory technical work, but they don't go on to PhD programs.
In the area of biomedical sciences, for anyone who's interested, the Council of Graduate Schools has made a recommendation, and many universities has adopted that to eliminate master's programs. So you, after your bachelor's, you are actually admitted directly into a doctoral degree. And as Professor Humphrey said, if you fail, they will give you a terminal master's as a consolation. But the idea is that you are actually not in a master's program, but from the day you enter into the school, you are actually in a doctoral program. And so, again, it re-emphasizes what Professor Reed said, a research-based graduate program is far superior than a non-research thesis-based graduate program.
I would add also, whoever is planning to get his PhD, he should be encouraged, or should be encouraged to go for a master thesis option, which basically it's a good foundation to continue on a PhD. We'll go for mic number 2.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Othman Al-Dawadi. I'm currently a PhD student in the United States. I would like to thank you, Dr. Sahel, for the presentation, especially about how students should be encouraged to go and have training outside the scope of just being in and out from school and back to Saudi Arabia. However, there is an issue with the U.S. companies. The way they like the internship is to hire American to be staying in whatever their city is, and that's create a problem. What we're trying to do, this is an initiative I'm working with the other Saudis there, is try to market to the companies that if you provide a budget from, let's say, international marketing budget and hire those individuals, when they return to Saudi, they will promote your products and services. As far as the medical side, I think medical side is recommended in military. That is always part of the curriculum. But for businesses and engineers, there is always a struggle to convince the companies. And I don't know if you have an experience to share with us how these companies could be more acceptant of international students who will leave eventually. They will not be staying in the territory, so they don't see them as a potential employees. So that's a case.
Yeah.
Suhail.
So I think you are absolutely right. Had I had a chance to finish my presentation, I would have actually showed you a couple of slides where how some universities, so international students for all the right reasons are going to be the fabric of the institution for years to come. Universities have recognized that. They have also recognized that these international students actually add to the intellectual capacity of the university and the diversity of the university. And they have also come to this recognition that they have not done enough to create similar opportunities for international students for training opportunities as they have for their local students. So many good universities have actually created these co-op programs with local. And they actually have two types of program, an OPT and a CPT, the curricular-based practical training and an optional practical training. So it largely depends on the university, which university you go to. Be very careful when you select the university, because one of the things I would urge you or beg you to do is to select a university that offers you these training opportunities and to maximize the use of these training opportunities. Because majority of you are going to come back to Saudi Arabia. This is your homeland. Okay, for US student, no problem. They can actually get this experience on the job. But for you, you are coming back. And it is therefore even more important for you to actually use these CPT and OPT opportunities. Remember, one of the other things that students don't realize is that if they are taking their bachelor's in the United States, they can actually do 12 months of training. But if they are taking post-bachelor, master's, they have another 12 months of training. And that if they are in a profession of STEM, such as science and technology and engineering and mathematics, they have what is called the optional 7-month extension. So they can actually take on overall 29 or 31 weeks of 31 months of training if they are in an undergraduate, a graduate program in STEM. 31 months of training is a sizable training.
Dr. Bani from Jazan University, graduate students Vice Dean. I have two comments. One concerning the GRE. Because there is a lot of concern whether the GRE is appropriate for foreign students. And some universities now are waiving the GRE from foreign students, especially if they have a very good score in the language.
So the question is that is GRE required to get into a graduate program? So as I have worked very closely with my friend Dr. Ibrahim Bani from Jazan. If you have a degree such as MBBS or anything similar to MBBS from Saudi Arabia, we have worked with many universities, including Tulane University, to actually waive the GRE. Because remember what the Council of Graduate Schools have said about GRE. A GRE is not a very good predictor of how you're going to do in, at least in biological sciences. So there has been a waiver of GRE that has been given to students. So GRE is not an absolute requirement. However, if you have a pure bachelor's from Saudi Arabia, not a professional degree like MBBS or any other degree, then GRE is a required, it's a must. And many institutions look at GRE in certain parts of GRE, not necessarily the entire GRE, but GRE becomes a must. I do not know what your experience has been.
Not only is the GRE required, but it's often used to determine who gets additional fellowships or status. It's a status thing for certain awards and assistantships.
Professor همفري, do you want to elaborate on this or regarding the GRE? I'm talking about Professor Craig.
What's your experience with the GRE?
It's the same. We do waive the requirement in some circumstances. If we have a relationship with the university, we know the students, we know the professors, and sometimes the opportunity to take the GRE is limited in other countries. But we do like to see it at least as a comparative tool upon admission.
May I just add one more important thing? Irrespective of what your graduating degree is, whether it is MBBS or bachelor's, GRE is required for doctoral programs. So you can get into a master's program with a waiver of GRE. And as Dr. Bani knows very well, if his students want to go and do a PhD in public health, the same student has been accepted without a GRE or GRE waiver in a master's program. But if they graduate from a master's program into PhD, they have to take a GRE. Because that's an accreditation requirement, not a school's requirement.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. أنا سؤالي بس واضح، كيف للحكومة السعودية وضع آليات ملزمة للاستفادة بعد الابتعاث والانعكاس الفعلي والملموس على المجتمع، لأن هذا حقها بعد إتاحة هذه الفرص للطلاب؟
تعيدي السؤال بس بالراحة.
سؤالي كيف للحكومة السعودية وضع آليات ملزمة للاستفادة بعد الابتعاث وأن يكون هناك انعكاس ملموس على المجتمع السعودي فعلا؟
سؤالك كيف يمكن للحكومة السعودية الاستفادة من الابتعاث بدون ما يكون في انعكاس على المجتمع؟
لا، وضع آليات ملزمة، أن تضع آليات ملزمة للاستفادة بعد هذا الابتعاث.
أنا ودي لو يعني نركز على موضوع الورشة ولا نخرج عن الأمور اللي ما لها علاقة في الورشة. يعني سؤالك يتكلم على استراتيجية دولة، أعتقد أنه مو مكان نقاشنا في المكان هذا. فإذا كان السؤال على فائدة الدولة من المبتعثين، أعتقد الإجابة بإمكان الزملاء يتشاركون فيها. أما إذا كان بعيد عن الموضوع، أنا أعتقد أنه we skip the question and we'll go to next. دكتور
Thanks for the speakers for their...
Just a minute, sorry. Excuse me, we talked in Arabic and we just thought we went over you. Basically, the question was a very strategic question, which is related to the government benefits out of all these people who have been really sent abroad all over USA, UK, whatever. And I think this is not related to this workshop. So I decided not to continue, sorry.
My question, I have three questions, one for George, one for Bamila, and one for Sohail. For George, I want to give us a little bit overview about the difference between comprehensive exam and qualifying exam. And is it mandatory for master students or not? And for Bamila, I would like to know about a little bit also about what kind of skills that you required from the students, graduate students, during their studying and after graduation. And for Sohail, I want to know if there is any programs for marketing the outcomes of the research thesis or not.
What was the last question?
Outcomes. What is, if there is any programs, can you market by marketing the outcomes of the research for master or PhD thesis?
Okay, with regard to the qualifying or comprehensive exam, usually the comprehensive exam is for that master's degree that is not a thesis degree. So you've taken your courses, and at the end of that period of time, you take a comprehensive exam, and that is the final requirement for the degree. The qualifying exam is really the transition to the PhD. You're submitting. It's often an oral exam. And you appear before your committee, and they ask you questions, anything that they wish about your field, and at the end the committee votes to say yes, you are qualified for doctoral study, and you move on.
I'm not sure I understood your whole question. It was, what do we expect students to be able to do at the graduate level?
What are the skills?
The skills?
Yeah.
Oh. Undergraduate and graduate. What are the skills for undergraduate and graduate? Just graduate students. I think graduate students should come with the ability to learn. I mean, it sounds so basic, but it's not. In other words, it's more than just being able to read the textbook. It's being able to understand and go to the next level of understanding of the topics, of the subjects they're studying, to be able to think critically, and to be able to engage with their peers and with the professor in this kind of critical discussion, so that the learning that they have is not just at the level of what's in the book, but now they're being able to take what's in the book, apply it, question it, especially at the doctoral level, to question it and then to even criticize it so that they can go on and create new questions and new ideas.
Dr. Sahel.
What was the question to me? I actually, because
Can we
there is
have
so
the mic
much.
to repeat the question, please?
Reverberation with mic.
Yeah.
It's with the microphone. No, say it without the microphone. We
See,
can hear you.
yeah.
Could you,
Can you mark
I mean,
it with-
entrepreneurship and moving to knowledge base, how do you market the outcomes of the research?
Okay, so probably he's talking about commercialization.
Commercialization,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes. So this is a major push in most universities in the United States as tuition dollars are dwindling and as state funding is becoming less and less, where they are actually going towards commercialization of your ideas. So if you come up with an idea in your... No, the thesis, your research, that's correct. Correct. You got it. No. Sure. So each university actually has what is called the technology parks, and within those technology parks they have got personnel who will actually take your results, take the outcome of your thesis, and they will look at it very carefully and see if this particular product that you have come up with is patentable. Okay. The university will then help you patent that particular property, which is called intellectual property, and then it becomes your intellectual property. What the technology parks also do is to look at your product and the products of other investigators in the university and see if the value of your product could actually be enhanced by combining it with another product from the same university. Now bear in mind that majority of you will actually be working on federally funded grants. And if you are working on federally funded grants, you have an option to actually be an inventor on a patent. But if the grant is funded through the university or it's funded through a private agency, then depending what contract you have with them, you may not be the primary owner of that intellectual property. Okay, but this is a big push in the universities to take your intellectual idea, the outcome, and to commercialize, to make it a patent.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sahel. We'll go for mic number 5 on the top.
Najah Alaskar, faculty member. I just came from Massachusetts and state, and I applied for more than one university. And two of them, actually, unfortunately, they didn't accept me. When I asked them, they said because the level of your university between the universities in Saudi Arabia, it's not really high. What should I do with this? Because I really want to, get acceptance for this university that I applied with. My question is, what should I do when they said, because they said your university that you graduated from, it's not, the level of your university is not very high.
Where did he graduate from?
So what should you do? What should you do if your university level that you graduated from is not very high when you're applying to graduate school?
Exactly.
I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. I think that this is the opportunity. Well, even though most places would prefer you to go directly from undergraduate into a doctoral program, if you've graduated from a university that's not that prestigious, you might try a couple of strategies. One would be to apply for a master's degree at a more prestigious institution so that you step up and you might not go directly to the doctoral program, but even at a prestigious university, you might get into the master's program. The master's programs are a lot easier to get into. And once you get there, if you do very well, and also get to work with some of the professors there, especially if you volunteer to work on research projects and with their research, it's an opportunity then to try again. I've known students who've been successful with that strategy. Another way is to just go directly and volunteer to and see if there's an opportunity to work as a post-baccalaureate person on their research project. Because if faculty get to know your abilities, and even though your institution may not have been as prestigious, if you have the skills and the intellect, they would welcome you into their project. So I would say that there are ways. The major difficulty at a less prestigious institution is that the doctoral faculty may not know your professors and the people who've written the letters of recommendation. So the key would be to ask professors, if you're at an institution that's not very prestigious, there still may be faculty there who know professors at the doctoral institution, and you need to identify them and let them know your interest in going to their alma mater, the place that they graduated from, or the place that they're doing research with people from that institution. So those are a couple of ways that you can overcome that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Pam. We'll take, I guess, one more question, and it's going to be the last question, and it's from that side.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. I wanted to ask about a research proposal. As I don't have a research experience when I did my master degree, and now I want to apply for a PhD in the US. Do I have to write about research methods in my proposal? And what are the things I need to include in this? Thank you so much.
I mean, so there, if you have done masters without thesis, you can still apply to a doctoral program, which is obviously a thesis-based program. So have you applied for a program, and have they said something back to you?
Not yet, really.
Not yet, no.
Yeah.
No.
No?
She hasn't applied.
Yeah, so don't use that as a something that's going to be challenging, and it's going to prevent you from going into a doctoral program. They look at many other attributes, not just the fact that you have done a master's which is thesis-based. Because remember, you will actually be doing a lot of research in your doctoral program. So if you are an outstanding student, your letters of references from, you said University of Arizona, correct?
No, I did in Australia, in UNSW.
Australia?
Yeah.
So your letters of references, your statement of purpose, your GRE, your if they have a process for interview, your interviews, that's going to be a lot of things that they can assess you on.
Okay, thank you so much.
Dr. Pam or Dr. Murphy, any comment on this issue?
Well, even though you're saying you haven't done research, you may not have conducted laboratory research or clinical research, but people will very much value excellent writing. So if you've done literature research, that will also be a good start in moving into a doctoral program.
Okay, thank you everybody, and we'll just wrap up this workshop with 3 slides by Dr. Nzih, which is related to the Sadia Ieche in United States.
جماعة طبعا الملحقية الثقافية في واشنطن هي الجهة التي تتابع الطلاب المبتعثين في أمريكا، فلا بد كل واحد قبل ما يروح أمريكا يروح sacam.org الموقع هذا. في البرنامج التعريفي الرابط هذا موضح في 5 أفلام إرشادية تقول لك ايش تعمل قبل ما توصل امريكا، ايش حيحصل لك في المطار، لما توصل في الملحقيه ايش الاوراق المطلوبه، في الجامعه ايش تعمل، بعض القوانين، افلام كل فيلم 10 دقائق ربع ساعه. ضروري جدا 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 تشوف هذه الافلام قبل ما تروح. في موقع اخر sacamclubs.org الانديه السعوديه التابعه للملحقيه الثقافيه، حتلاقي في خريطه لامريكا. موجود في الخريطه تشوف الولايه اللي انت رايح فيها، تضغط على اسم الجامعة اللي انت رايح فيها، حتلاقي النادي السعودي موجود، اسم رئيس النادي، نائب الرئيس، منسقة الأنشطة الطلابية، تلفوناتهم، ايميلاتهم، طريقة التواصل معهم. قبل ما توصل للبعثة ضروري تتواصل مع الأندية الطلابية السعودية الموجودة في أمريكا. طبعا كتيب الإرشادات الدراسات العليا موجود على المدونة، موجود على موقع الملحقية، ممكن تنزله، موجود في الساكم بوث. كل إن شاء الله حنحاول الموجودين حاليا نكون موجودين على الركن الملحقية اللي موجود في المعرض رقم 201. عندكم أي تساؤلات أي استفسارات الله يحييكم ونتمنى لكم التوفيق والسداد ويعطيكم العافية.
Well, thank you all, and I'm glad that we finally got some exposure to the really procedures and the policy and all the condition and the requirements to the United States schools. I would like to thank you all for really participating on this wonderful workshop, and I wish that whoever has attended really utilized the information that have been delivered. Just by the name of the Saudi attaché, this is just something for an appreciation to remember our embassy, I guess, and our Saudi attaché in the United States, and this workshop, I guess, forever. I'm good.